Okay, you on? You on? You good to go?
Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Once, I can take this off, can I?
Yeah.
Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Once again, the Lord has blessed us by allowing us to return to His house for worship. Always remember, and I want you to remember right now, that the Lord is always blessing you, and He blessed us again today. Today is known as Easter Sunday, for we know that without Easter, there would be no praising Him here in this house today. We are also thankful that the Lord has brought us this far past the virus. We know that the virus is still here, but we know that we trust in Him and do those things we're supposed to do, that He's going to take care of us again. He is, and reaffirm that He is God and He is God all by Himself. We pray for our brothers and sisters who have gone on to glory. The Lord has taken them to a better place, but we know that we'll see them again if we keep living right. We also remind those of us who are still here that He has a plan for us, and we're not here just to be here, but He has a plan for our life. He has a plan for us to make some contributions to the greater good. So when this plan appears to you, don't try to run away from it because He won't let you. If the plan is for you, He's going to beat you with it until you accept it. So right at this time, we like to say a short prayer. Our Father, once again, we're so glad, grateful, and thankful that you allowed us to assemble here in your name. We know that you say wherever 2 or 3 is together in your name, you'll be there also. When we walked in the door this morning, we could feel your presence. As we walk through the church, we continue to feel your presence. We know that this is your house, and you'll always be here, and you'll always be with us. Whereas that you bless the pastor, that you bless all of members of this church, and that you continue to shine that light on us and continue to give us those things that you want us to do, and that we will continue to respond as you would have us do. These blessings we pray now in your name forevermore. Amen. Today, brothers and sisters, we want to thank Deacon Holmes and Deacon Washington, who presented such inspiring messages over the past 2 months. They really did the job that the Lord would have them to do. And we just hope and pray that we're able to measure up to those the performance that they gave. But anyway, we will do our best with what God has given to us. Now, as we go into this lesson, some of the people who normally sit in my Sunday school class will tell you that we will probably not cover the whole book today. We will not probably cover the whole lesson today, because I like to say what I want to do. I want to make sure whatever we cover that we all understand. Now, today, our lesson focus, our lesson is coming from Jeremiah 22, 1 through 10. Now I say 1 through 10, but we probably gonna go past 10 because we gotta continue the story. If we just stop at 10, then the whole story that we're trying to convey, you will not have it. So we want to cover Jeremiah today. The focus of the lesson today is justice required caring for foreigners, the fatherless, the widows, and all of the downtrodden. Making a plan, and simply it requires us caring for all. Now, remember, why should we care for all? Because Jesus Christ cared for all. Now, we know that it's easy and probably not too hard for us to care and do things for those people who already have something. But today we want to talk about the downtrodden, because everybody want to help those who have. If if you can remember, if you're a baseball fan, if the baseball star decided to retire, and he's already making $10 million a year, they want to give him a big send-off. They want to give him a big celebration. He don't really need it. They want to give him a new car. Want to give him just all kinds of stuff. Now, if the guy who sells the tickets at the game, if he retired, nobody don't give him nothing. They might give him a watch and a letter and say thank you. So we want to make sure that we are doing right by everybody, but we want to make sure we're doing right by those who are most in need. So today we'll find that Jeremiah had a time. He had a time dealing with the people he had to deal with. Now Jeremiah was mostly dealing with the kings and the people of stature, but he found out that it's hard to deal with them also. So what we want to do today, excuse me, what we want to do today is that as we look at the verses in our lesson, we are not going to start with them right away. But what we want to start with right away is the kings that were in power during this time. You say, why are you going to the kings? Well, the kings kind of set the tone for how things were going to work. Now, I take that back. Jesus Christ set the tone, but the kings were supposed to follow those things that he wanted to have done. But we're going to find as we go through this thing that these kings that we're talking about, they decided to do things like they wanted to do. And they did not follow Jesus Christ's teachings and his messages that he sent them. So what happens? They met not a very good end. We want to talk about the first king was Josiah. Now Josiah, he did those things that God told him to do. Josiah cared for the people. He was a godly king. So he served for 31 years and sought to lead the people back to God. But the problem was those who came after him, his sons and his grandson. I thought of something. A lot of times, there was a saying back in the neighborhood, that the fruit don't fall far from the tree. Well, it couldn't have been talking about this tree because Josiah was a godly tree. Josiah was a caring tree. Josiah was the kind of tree that was going to be fruitful for the people. But these other trees, his grandson and his sons, they were just the opposite. That fruit fell mighty far from the tree. It wasn't nowhere near the tree because they did not do those things as Josiah had done. Now, because as we look through these, because Jehoshaphat was the son who came over and took over after Josiah died. But that didn't work too well. He only lasted for 3 months. Now, it should be easy to do anything for 3 months. And it certainly should be easy to serve the Lord for 3 months. But Josiah, he didn't make it. He was worried. Once he got to be king, he, as the old folks would say, he got full of himself. He got to the point where he wanted to do what he wanted to do, and he wanted to please Josiah and wasn't worried about anybody else. We got to remember as leaders, as we're talking about leaders in the community, or we're talking about leaders in Congress, if we're talking about leaders in the church, and more so leaders in church, our main mission is not to feel high and mighty by the excuse me, by the possession that we have, But our main mission is how well we serve the people. And in serving the people, how well we serve God. Now, we need to remember that. So after they put Jehoshaphat was taken down and they sent him back to Egypt where he died, Jehoiakim was the next one to take his place. He was a guy who probably was a little smarter than the king before him. But he, once again, he was a little smarter, but he was a little dumber because he wanted to do what he wanted to do, and he didn't want to do what God had instructed him to do. Now, we realize because once he got to be king, you know, sometimes you get to be in those positions, people get to thinking that they are God. But he was not God, but he tried to act like he was his own God. Now, you should remember the old the title of the old film, the film, and also the play that they had on Broadway, that My Arms Are Too Short to Box with God. Now, that's what he got the big head, and he looked around, and he had a reach of about 32, and God's reach was endlessly. So we find that he has run into trouble already. Because Jeremiah said about him that once he died, the people was not gonna give him the same praise and was not gonna give him the same kind of tribute that they gave Josiah. He said about him, nobody is gonna lament him. I know, if we know the Lamentations, is when the people went around singing about the goodness of the king, singing about what he had done for them, and singing about what he was going to do for them. Even Jeremiah had written Lamentations to Josiah when he died. So that's how important it was, and that's how the people thought of Josiah. But he said these other guys, when they died, say they're going to be, their bodies are going to be cast on the garbage dump, and that their body would be ravaged by the birds and all the other animals that go around to the garbage dump to see if they can get something to eat. So we see that what was going to happen to him, and also. We talked about some of the things that's going to happen to him because God was angry with him. God did not appreciate how he had taken care of his people, because he had not taken care of them at all. Now, when God gets angry with you, you know, we got such a nice, good, kind, sweet God. And that we think that he's going to always be that way. He's going to always be that way as long as you do what you're supposed to do. Now, when he get mad with you, he said, let me read this. Just like he got mad with he got mad with the king over in Deuteronomy 28 and 26. Here's what he said was going to happen to that king. Your carcasses shall be food for all of the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth, and no one shall frighten them away. The Lord will strike you with the balls of Egypt, and with tumors, and with scabs, and with an itch for which you cannot be healed. The Lord will strike you with madness and blindness and confusion of heart, and you shall grope at noondays as a blind man gropes in darkness. You shall not prosper in your ways. You shall be only oppressed and plundered continually, and no one shall save you. You shall betroth a wife, and another man will lie with her. Now, I know how you brothers are. I know you don't want that to happen to you. You shall build a house, but you shall not dwell in it. You shall plant a vineyard, but shall not gather its grapes. Your ox shall be slaughtered before your eyes, but you shall not eat of it. Your donkey will be violently taken away from you, and shall not be restored. Your sheep shall be given to your enemies, and you shall have no one to rescue them. Now, brothers and sisters, your sons and your daughters shall be given to another people, and your eyes shall look and fall with longing for them all day, and they shall be no strength in your hand. So, brothers and sisters, we know all of the good things that God can do, and we know how good he can treat us. But we also see that when God gets angry with us, and really you've gone to one of his last nerves, as we would say, you can see the kind of heat he will bring down on you. So as we go down, the next king we had was Jehoiakim. He only lasted for 3 months. I don't know something about this 3 months deal. As you remember, the first guy who took over after Josiah, he didn't last for 3 months. But sometimes God gives you many, many chances. But sometimes God has a whole lot of wisdom, and sometimes he realized early that you're just not going to do right, and he needs to find somebody else to look after his people. So what happened here, he sent this guy away. He was kicked out. He and his mother, and as the song would say, his daddy too. He was kicked out. And after 3 months, there must be something about these 3 months, because he was just like the one before him. Not only was he taking the people's money and using up all and everything that he had that they gave him, but he also had made slaves of some of them. He was using them for labor and was not paying them. And it is written with the Jews that you would never take advantage of your fellow man like that. The fellow Jews, they would never be used without being paid. So this guy just he did it. He did it all. So after 3 months, he was gone. Now let's look at Zedekiah. He's the last of the kings. But once again, once he got in position, he started getting a little lax also. He started thinking about Zedekiah and not the people. So once again, the Lord gave Jeremiah a message saying, now you go down there and you let this king know that I am not happy with him. You let this king know that I am giving you this message personally to give to him. Because I think he had sent messages before, but sometimes when you send messages and don't go yourself, people don't believe it. Oh, he must not be too worried about it. He must not be too concerned, because he didn't send the main guy. He sent one of his clerks. He didn't send. It's kind of like if you were about to get fired off a job, the boss would fire you himself. He wouldn't send the timekeeper over to fire to let you know you're fired. So when he got down. When he got down to Zedekiah, like the rest of them, he was laying back in David's house, the house of cedar. Now, we all know the price of cedar, and back in those times, it was probably the most expensive wood that they had, because every time they talk about rebuilding the temple, they were always talking about doing with cedar. Now, for some of you all who might remember, I know a lot of y'all not old enough, that normally back in the day when a young girl was getting married, guy had proposed and told her, and they set a date, said for a year from now, whatever, one of the first things she or God or mom or somebody got a little money together and bought a hope chest. Now, that hope chest in some place was called a cedar chest. Now, if you didn't have enough money to buy a hope chest completely of cedar, then you got one with a few lines, a few strips of cedar inside. Now, why was this important? Because cedar could repair all the bugs and the contamination from something, clothes and other precious things sitting in there for a year. So this is what the houses in the temple was made of, the cedar. So Zechariah was sitting on his throne, bending footed for the covenant God had made with David. But we say it once again, God had made this covenant, but there's always something else for you to do once he does his part. Now, we know somebody said, well, God made a covenant. A covenant is a contract. It's an agreement. And we don't think, we can't believe God was gonna break his contract. Well, once again, God said that he's gonna do his, but you got to do yours too. You go out there to Mr. Michelin for a job and they hire you, and you're supposed to work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and you don't come in some days. After a while, he's going to get tired of you. He's going to fire you. Before he fires you, hopefully, he gives you a talking to. Before he fires you, hopefully, he will let you know what you're doing and what you're not, and what you should be doing. Now, as we see it here, as Jeremiah come down to talk to the kings, that is exactly what God is doing. He's reminding them of the pact that he made with David. He is reminding them that they had a role to play in this. Because Jeremiah backed up a little bit and asked the Lord to kind of give them another chance. Well, as the time was passing there, it looked like Jeremiah was going to be able to buy a little time, but that wasn't so. God was tired. God was angry, and God was feeling for his people, because we know that when you're talking about the church, or when you're talking about the home, whether you're talking about the job, the business, there's a thing called leadership. Leadership. And God had chosen these leaders, but they did not come up to par. So remember, as a leader, it is your job first and foremost to take care of those underneath you. Because if you look at Jesus Christ, the first thing he did was take care of those who follow him. So you got to take care of those people who you've been charged up with to look over. But Jeremiah tried, but it just wouldn't work. So as we see now, Jeremiah has talked with Zechariah. He has talked with Zedekiah, and it's not working, so it is time for Zedekiah to go also. But we're going to remember, you say, well, what are they going to do now? Because we say that during Zedekiah's time, the place was destroyed, the people had nowhere to go, and on and on and on. These bad things happen. So we say we know that Jesus Christ is not going to allow his people just to be out there in the wilderness somewhere by themselves without any hope. But you're right. That is what happened. He was not going to let them continue to be out there by themselves without a leader who was not looking out for them. Now, but then we had to find a king. Then we had to find a leader. Then we had to find somebody who really was going to look out for the people. Then we had to jump over from the Old Testament to the New Testament, because we find now that we are going to get another king. We are going to get another king. We're going to get a king who's not going to be living in that palace of cedar. We're going to get a king whose walls not going to be painted with vermilion. We're going to get a king who is got the people in mind more than himself. We're going to get a king who's going to live right. We're going to get a king who's going to do all of those things that the lesson say we should do at the beginning. We're going to get a king who's going to look after the downtrodden. We're going to get a king who's going to look after those who have nowhere to go. We're going to get a king who going to look after those who have major illnesses. We're going to get a king who just needs somebody to tell them, hey, you are worthwhile, that the Lord blesses you, and that the Lord is in your corner. So, where is that king coming from? Well, if you look, that God already had a king in mind. You know, sometimes God will always say, hey, he don't come when you want him, but he always come on time. It took a while because, we know the country went through a whole lot of devastation. We know the country went through a whole lot of other countries taking advantage of them. We know that we're wondering sometimes how did God do his chosen people so bad? Well, but then we know that when God chastises you, he also normally follow that with a blessing if you ask him and if you start doing the right thing. So we're going to find that one comes upon the one come up on the screen just a little bit later. And who was that? Jesus Christ. We know that Jesus Christ, he was the new king as we go on to the New Testament. But what we're seeing here is that although it didn't happen in the time that we first started talking about, and it took a long time, because at one time so there wasn't any messages between heaven and the earth for about 400 years or so. Excuse me. But no matter how long it took, God had his plans. He had the plans for a king. He had the plans for a king he could trust. He had the plans for a king who wanted to be king. And he had plans for a king from the very beginning. And that king was Jesus Christ. Now, when Jesus Christ came on the scene, it wasn't a matter of who was first, who was second in line, and who did the right thing and who didn't do the right thing. Jesus Christ treated everybody the same. He treated everybody, you got paid from him according to what kind of work you put in. So we find that, and one day Jesus Christ will bring all the people from all over the corners of the earth, and they will all gather once again, and he will rule over all of it with his Father. So we know that when Jesus Christ has been let down by the common man and whatnot, God has a plan in line also. Now, we are to remember as we go back, we want to go back and say something about the questions that was in the lesson. The first question say, what encounters have you had with orphans, foreigners, widows, and those who are ostracized? Well, I think most of us, somewhere down the line, has ran into someone who is in a little bit worse shape than us. Now, I know myself to say when I was in Korea and in Vietnam, I was part of the committee that went down to the villages, and because we had a lot of fighting going on there, and American soldiers, we were eating well, but the people were not, because their crops were being ravished and burned and on and on. But we went down to our local village, to the orphanage, and God knows the place was overcrowded. And we brought food and comfort down to those youngsters and down to the people who ran the orphanage. So you can always do something. I see since the virus went around, we got a lot of organizations, churches, and on, who have been helping feeding the people. Because the people now, there are more people who need food than we can ever remember. There are more people now than people who used to just go to one of those missions. But a lot of times they were homeless people. But we got families now who need food. And if we have it within us to do it, then we should help feed them. Because let me tell you, you can talk to this person about God. You can talk to this person about Jesus Christ. You can talk to this person about going to heaven. But if he's hungry, if he's got a weak stomach, that's making all kind of noises, I don't care how long you talk to him, he's not going to hear anything you say until you satisfy his physical needs. Now, that's just the truth of it. You can't talk to a guy about heaven and what's going to happen one day when he got a problem today. So we should concentrate on doing those things. The second question we got is, who do you know who is currently being overlooked or forgotten about God's people? Well, once again, we can look right here in our own country. And we can look at the blacks, who most of us know. We can look at the Hispanic. We can look at the Asian American. We can look at the Native Americans, the ones we call Indians. Because we'll find that we just had something that just happened in the state of Georgia where they passed some bills. Now, what the bills are specifically geared toward those people who are basically among the have-nots, because it meaning a whole bunch of blacks too. Excuse me. I know we feel that we've got it made, but believe me, we have a whole lot of our brothers and sisters, our moms, our dads, our cousins, and nieces who are among the have-nots. And so if you don't want to go somewhere else and start a program, you can just start in your own family. As you look out, some of your nieces, and who fell onto bad time, who had when they were teenagers, who did some things that they shouldn't have done, who got to know some knucklehead boy, and then she became pregnant, and he had no job. If he had a job, he wasn't going to do nothing. But she needs some help. We got a lot of those people. We got a few of those in the church who need some help. So don't overlook them, because they're God's people also. So if you overlook them, then you're kind of overlooking God. So, but we always say, charity start at home. So let's just start with our own folk here. Say, how would you personally bring justice to the weak and the ostracized? Well, I would do it, number one, by treating them like people. I would do it, number two, by letting them know, hey, you could help change your own situation if you just go with me as when I bring you to the office where you can register to vote. Because what we want, and if they register to vote and start demanding some things upon themselves. Now, because you find that people really feel good, you know, those stories that when you teach them how to do something, you know, rather than showing them how to do it, showing them how you can do it for them. So remember that as you look around close in, that there are many areas where we have our people who have been ostracized and just not considered. So we'll find, and I just want to do one other thing here. I want to look at a couple of the verses that we had. And we kind of covered some of this already. And Jeremiah 22:1, which is our lesson. Thus saith the Lord, go down to the house of Judah and speak this word. Now, we already talked about that. And the thing that I want to mention on that again, the Lord will not send you to do a mission that he does not equip you to do. In fact, Jeremiah didn't have to worry about what he was going to say when he got there because the Lord told him what he wanted him to say. And sometimes the Lord tells us what he wants us to say because he don't want us to mess it up. And then the second verse is say, hear the word of the Lord, O King of Judah, that sitteth on the throne of David, thou and thy servants and thy people that enter into these gates. Now, he told Jeremiah to let him know that the information that he was sending him, what he wanted him to do, it was not just for the leaders. It was for the leaders, but it's for the people also. Because sometimes when things not going our way, it's so easy to say, well, I would have been able to do it. I would have been able to I could have gotten such and such, but the rules and regulations wouldn't let me do it. I could have done it, but I know that person who was in charge of me would not have liked it. Well, before you start complaining, before you start talking about what somebody else, why you didn't do it, make sure you do that which saved the Lord for you to do. And as we look at Jeremiah 22:3, thus saith the Lord, execute ye judgment and righteousness, deliver the spoil out of the hand of the oppressor, and do no wrong, no violence to the stranger, fatherless or to the widow, neither shed innocent blood in this place. He told you that our judgment should be righteous and that we should not continue to be down on those who are not doing well. And, you know, he pointed out the people, he was talking about the widows, the oppressors, and on and on. Now, we all have good common sense, hopefully. And we know those people in our neighborhood. We know those people in our church who need assistance. So don't go around saying, hey, I could not find anybody to help, because you can't. If we leave this church today and we walk 3 or 4 blocks over, we can find some downtrodden. We can find some people who need that help. Well, and 22:4, for if ye do these things indeed, then shall there enter in by the gates of the houses of kings sitting upon the thrones of David, riding in chariots and on horses, he and his servants and his people. He's telling the kings, but the message is to all the leaders and to all of us, that if we do these things that he has instructed us to do, that if we do these things as he has told us to do, we do not have to worry. He is going to take care of us, and we're going to have all these good things. You're going to have that house. You might not have that house up on Margaret's Hill, but you might have that church, that house down on whatever street you live on. So, but God's going to take care of you, and just like he told the kings, he would take care of them. So, a lot of times people say, hey, I'm not anybody, there's nothing I can do. Remember, and I close with this, that we all are somebody in God's eye, and that you may not think that he has something for you to do, because you may say, oh man, I don't have a PhD, I'm not a master plumber, I'm not an electrician or whatever, but God got something else for you to do, and he would take care of that. Now, today, I hope that you understood the lesson. Today, I hope that you received something from it. So as of this time, we're going to once again give God all the thanks. We're going to have a short prayer. Father in heaven, once again, you came through for us. Once again, you have been here with us. Once again, you told us what you wanted us to say. And once again, we tried to do that. We ask that you continue to be with us, that you bless us through this day, and that you do those things that will give our people a mind that they should get their shots. And so because these shots for the virus that are put here are being done with your guidance. And you are telling them what they need to do to overcome this. And let's pray that we can get them to understand, and that we will all do those things that you have instructed us to do. These things we ask now and forever in your name. Amen.